Welcome to the Holy Spirit's Curriculum of Joy podcast. My name is Wanaka Overhuber and I'm your host. My guest today is Michael Ryce. Welcome to the podcast.
Absolutely delighted to be here. And apologies to those who've been listening as we've gone through our technical challenges. Vinya and Henry.
Thanks for staying on. Anyways, so I like to start with a question where you can take your time to answer it. Yeah, there's no time limit, let's put it that way, for the answer. So the question is, how did you come to see the world the way you do today?
Wow, that's quite a question. I guess if I start off, my last 6 days in utero, my mother had toxemia, and they gave her Pitocin to try to force me out. And the night that I was born, they called my father at work and said, if you want to see this kid alive, you better get down here because he's not going to live through the night. That was my starting point. The next 25 years or so, I lived on an inhalator and pills. The beginning of school each year, instead of being in a schoolroom, the first couple of weeks I was usually in an oxygen tent in the hospital. I lived on an inhalator and pills. And at about that 25-year point, I realized that though the drugs they were giving me and such were keeping me alive, they were ultimately killing me. So that set me on a search. And that search led me into the realm of physics and naturopathic medicine. I came across the first century Aramaic teachings of Jeshua, the man who's classically called Jesus. And with my background, my original training was in the arena of physics and electronics. And when I first came in touch with the Aramaic teachings of Jeshua, what I recognized was this is not theology, this is physics, this is physiology, this is psychology, this is genetics. I was doing a course at a location in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was doing a series on parables, actually. And when we completed, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was a 16-week series. This goes back 40-some years ago. When we completed that series, the folks that were in the class said, let's do something else. We don't want to just end with this. I said, well, what do you want to do? And somebody said, how about a Course in Miracles? I'd never heard of the course. I went out and bought a copy of it, and the next week started to teach from it. And it was like we had not shifted at all. We just went from one week to the next, and the same conversation continued. So I've worked with the course for about the last 40 years. 40 plus years. I think I was introduced about the first year or so it came out. And it just melded perfectly with the science, with the psychology, with the naturopathic medical training that I'd had. And what particularly has impacted my, has led me to mostly delete perception from my life and move into a different set of faculties is the first century Aramaic teachings of forgiveness, and finding the exact same teachings in the Course in Miracles led me to believe that both of those teachings were sourced from the man we call Jesus. And I have traveled pretty much the globe in search of answers. And the only two places that I've found the exact and specific directions for how to collapse perception is in those Aramaic teachings and in the Course in Miracles. And recognizing that the world, and very often people who approach the Course, also turn forgiveness backward as the world has. And that backward perspective is, I've got pain happening inside of me, which is, of course, your fault. but it's okay. I'll forgive you. I'll let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me. That's the traditional view of forgiveness in the world, at least as I've experienced it, no matter where I go on the globe. And what I came to understand from the first century Aramaic teachings of Jeshua, and I'm the director of a foundation, it's translating a copy of the oldest known New Testament, its original Aramaic language, into English. And then also from my work with the Course, what I've come to understand is that forgiveness has nothing to do with letting other people off the hook. It has nothing to do with anybody else. That forgiveness is a tool with which, if my mind, if my emotions, if my physiology, my nervous system are producing pain or trauma of some sort, forgiveness is how I collapse into the root of that energy and process it out of my system so that I'm freed of whatever that pained energy is. So that was a discovery that came to me about within the first 2 years or so of working with the Course. And so I've spent the last 40 plus years developing a curriculum that focuses on how to, as effectively and efficiently and as quickly as possible, hand a tool of forgiveness to people and invite them to use it. When I go to work with the Course in Miracles group, up until about 6 years ago when my father-in-law became ill and we moved here to Virginia to take care of him, my wife traveled the country and the globe, the United States, and anywhere on the planet we were invited for that 40 or so years. We were on the road 6 to 10 months of the year. And what my focus has been is how to get the tool of forgiveness into people's hands in the most effective way possible. We've developed a worksheet. I wrote a book entitled Why Is This Happening to Me Again?, which people can download free from my website. We have the world's only forgiveness app. If people want to download the app, they can go to our website go to their app store and just type in Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And the app is totally free. It's totally private. So people can put whatever issues they're working on into their phones and do the forgiveness work right there on their phones. And also ask questions. I've been doing a radio show called Mind Shifters Radio for the last 15 years, and we're just there to support and answer questions about and support people in processing through whatever patterns they're stuck in that keep them separated from the truth of who they are as love, where the Course's directive is you need not seek for love, just find the barriers and get rid of them, the barriers you built within yourself against it. So in a nutshell, that would be my life's work. That's what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 decades.
So I'm curious to ask how you got away. Did you get away from having to inhale and take pills all the time, or you still need to do that?
I haven't had a drug in my body in close to half a century.
So I'm curious, how did that shift happen, or was it through the studies of the Aramaic teachings of Yeshua or the Course in Miracles, or was the naturopathic stuff, or where did the shift happen, or how did it happen?
My experience was that it was all of the above. Basically, what I've done over the years is looked at everything that I could find in the realm of healing, whether it's naturopathic medicine in what people call the physical body, but recognizing that there is no such thing as a physical body. What we've called physical is just an energy system, and it follows the rules of energy, which would be the rules of creation, as I would interpret it, as opposed to following what they call the mechanical physical rules. So it's really all of the above. My take is that, in the same way, if I have a coin and I look at the head of the coin, if I'm here in the States and I look at this head, I might see George Washington. And if I look at the tail of the coin, I might see this Lady Gaudine, this painting of this woman. And so somebody looks at the coin and says, oh, that's George Washington. Looks at the other side and says, oh, that's Lady Gaudin. Well, is it one or the other, or is it a coin and we're looking at two different perspectives of one singular event? So my take is that what we call physiology, which is nothing more than a state of organized energy, is simply one side of the coin, and what happens in our minds and our emotions is the opposite side of the coin. And in the same way as you can't take the head off of the George Washington coin, you can't do it. You can't take the tail off it and leave just the head, or vice versa. You can't take the mind out of this energy system any more than you can take the body out of it and separate it in any way. The separation is false. I love what Einstein says as a physicist. He says, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. And all perception is simply an optical delusion. Everything that our mind shows us, we've been trained by the world into a falsity that we're looking out through our eyes at what's happening in the world. Well, the truth is our minds generate this world of pictures, and it paints those pictures on the inside of our eyeballs. We can't see out through our eyes. That's foolishness to think you can see out through your eyes. What we see, or think we see, is simply structures called perception, as the Course refers to it. One of my favorite lessons, the link that I sent you on what is the world, the Course is really simple and clear. In fact, it's so simple that many people I've worked with over the years just don't get that how simple it is. The world is false perception. The only place that Course in Miracles aims forgiveness is at the world of false perception. It doesn't aim it at you or me or Charlie or Bill or anything that we think is out there. Forgiveness is a tool with which we collapse the world of false perception, drop into the root of that perception where the energetic error lies, bring that energetic error forward in the presence of active love, which is the master solvent that creates a dissolution. So for me, my healing process, and as I say, actually, when I said I haven't had a drug in my body in 50 years, I'm a little off there. A couple of times I've had tooth infections where I have taken an antibiotic, but otherwise, all of the drugs that I was raised on and spent the first decades of my life on, I've never touched them since. Had nothing to do with them whatsoever. So I've gone through doing energetic detoxification processes, which involves, engaging in things like certain nutritional processes that tend to open what I would refer to not as a body-mind unit, but the energy system, so that it can process out whatever is assaulting the system. In the Aramaic language, the word sin is not some terrible, awful thing that we've done. The Greeks made it out to be. It's actually an archery term, and if I'm on the archery range and fire at the target and I miss the bullseye, the scorekeeper yells sin. It just means off the mark. So everything that I've developed over the years has been a reflection of my own work and my own process. And what is it in me? What energy is off the mark that's creating this set of symptoms, whether the symptoms are anger or rage or what appears to be a diseased organ or a diseased relationship, that it's through our interactions that we get to see our sin, our energies that are off the mark. And when we remove those energies, we stop the dissolution of the energy system, which the world calls death, and step into what we're designed for, which literally, physiologically, is eternal life.
So you're sharing that through this energetic and mind detox, you were able to, and the physical side of it with the nutrition and so on, things were able to change for you. And you are sharing that with everyone who is interested, right?
That's the objective, and in particular, the forgiveness technology from the Aramaic, which again is matched in the Course. That in particular is the main thing that we're committed to sharing, literally with every mind, heart, being on the planet. That's what what life is all about for both my wife and I.
Yeah, I thought you would both be here, but anyways, no problem. So
We have a granddaughter who's 6. We raise her 2 to 3 days a week, and our son actually, her dad, went through some pretty significant surgery last week, and they had to travel to Nashville today, and so my wife is with Aria, our granddaughter, and tied up with her today.
So let's go further. So teaching A Course in Miracles is very fascinating because it speaks of that has the term teacher of God and all these terms that are very, very, very important to A Course in Miracles. How do you feel about that description of our role when we are in the role of teaching A Course in Miracles?
Well, one of the things that I do when I travel, and I've interacted with hundreds of Course in Miracles groups over the years when I've been on the road, and I usually use a 4x8 whiteboard for my presentations. And one of the first things I'll do when I go to a Course in Miracles study group is I write on the board in as large letters as I can, "Don't study A Course in Miracles." And most people look at me and go, "Wait a minute, this is a Course in Miracles study group. What are you talking about? Don't study A Course in Miracles." And I'll put an X through that, and underneath it, write the words, "Learn forgiveness." The Course is not about studying the Course. The Course, to me, the Course is really clear. The truth can't be spoken in words. Why would we study words? We ascribe, my understanding, my take is that we ascribe to words a power that words don't have, and that is the power to teach us anything. But what the words can do, what the power that words have, is that they can describe a set of tools with which, if we use them, we will create an experience. And for me, the work of Jeshua is not about admiring the work that Jeshua did and stand and go, "Wow, look what he did." The work of Jeshua is take the tools, put them into your life, and have a personally experienced the result produced by the tools. And the main result to me that the tools are about presenting is to step into life. If you go back to the ancient scriptures, where they speak of, or Yeshua speaks of his purpose in being here. And you'd think the way a lot of people talk about his work, that he was here to teach dogma or doctrine or theology or something like that. But actually, he made it really simple. He says, "I come to bring you life more abundantly." That's all. And the best definition, the best understanding, at least that I can start to put into words, for life is that life is the energy of love flowing through this energy system. And anything that I do that inhibits life from flowing through this energy system is sin. It's an energy that's off the mark that inhibits life, that shuts it down. We do enough shutting down of that, and what happens is the appearance of what we call death. So life more abundantly is, what do I need to do to open the direct experience of the fact that I am, you are, we each are the created essence of love, and that love is designed to flow through us. Interesting word in the Aramaic language. The word prayer does not mean to put your order into the cosmic gift catalog and tell God what God should be doing for you. The word prayer in Aramaic means to set a trap for God, which for most people sounds kind of strange. Set a trap for God? What do you mean? Well, if you think in terms of energy, if I have an antenna on the roof and a TV set here, if that antenna is aligned properly, the arms are formed properly, I get a good picture and a good sound coming out of my TV set. There's a proper energy exchange, and I get a full, clear picture and sound. If somebody goes up on the antenna and bends the arms of the antenna, turns the antenna backward, my picture is going to be snowy and of poor quality, because the antenna is not trapping the signal that it's designed to trap, and therefore the signal is not reflecting properly through the television set. When you understand from the Aramaic that they're talking about physics, not physiology, then you recognize that this energy field that we have, that we call, or the perceptually we see as and call a body-mind unit, that it is, my take, literally a device designed, when properly aligned and oriented, to capture the energy in which we live, move, and have our being, and reflect that energy into the world. And the best word to describe that energy that we're designed to capture and reflect into the world is love. That we are literally energetic devices designed to pray continuously, 24/7, 365. Now, I can remember when I was a kid, church, yeah, that means I'm going to be down on my knees 24/7, 365. That's crazy. But when I recognize that if I'm oriented and aligned properly, and I've removed those things that inhibit the flow of love through me, the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, then I interact with that larger energy field, which people have called God, in which I live, move, and have my being. And being oriented and aligned properly, I get a full exchange of that energy flowing through me. And to me, that's the underlying directive that Yeshua is giving us, is to engage in the tools or the practice that brings us back to our original function. Does that make sense of what your question was?
So I am very pleased to hear that answer. Yeah, it's very important to understand that concept, right? That we are actually designed to exhibit the properties of love, and by you called it prayer, or capturing the essence of God, or God, or who we are aligned with that, and then we express it as well. That's very beautifully put.
Yeah, and if we refuse to do that, if we're in resistance to that, it's interesting. Another word in Aramaic. I love what Vladimir Lenin said, as man responsible probably for more deaths on planet Earth than anybody in human history. He said, if you want to destroy a culture, you change the meaning of its words. And you look at all the key words that Yeshua used in his Aramaic language, and he works to bring correction in the Course in Miracles. The Greek, so-called translations, but they're really not translations or interpretations, have turned everything virtually backward. And it's interesting that in Aramaic, the word Satan is not some dude with a red suited tail and the pitchfork. The word Satan means the resistor, one who misleads. Now, you watch the average person that's in some sort of pain or trauma, and you say, well, see, Bill, I've known you for 25 years, and I remember this story that you just told me, this upset that you got. I remember you told me about somebody that did that to you way back, like 25 years ago. And then, I remember the story when you said it happened 22 years ago. And then I think the other time was about 19 years ago. And then, maybe it was 16 years ago. You had a story about somebody else, up until today. Have you noticed that you're the only one that has been there every time? And what Bill is probably going to do is go, no, Michael, wait. That's the first half of the definition of Satan from the Aramaic, the resistor. No, don't make me look at what's going on inside of me. This isn't me. This is them. And then what's the second half of Satan? It's one who misleads. Now listen to Bill tell the story about, 25 years ago, here, let me tell you about what they did, and then 19 and 16, and yesterday, look what they did. And that's the very definition in Aramaic, in Yeshua's native language, of Satan, the resistor, one who misleads. And most people live their lives trapped there because very early in their lives, usually by the age of 4 or so, most everybody is so brainwashed by the misperceptions of the world that they are very devout, card-carrying members, very religious members of the one world universal religion of blame. And everything's everybody else's fault. And from there, they fall right into that trap of Satan. And that's where most of the world lives. And in that trap, the true identity of who we are as the created essence of love is lost. To me, the whole work of Jeshua is about restoring the understanding, first the understanding, the idea of who we are, and then having the personal experience, being personally experienced of that, by collapsing everything in the mind that goes against that, and literally removing those energetic patterns. What forgiveness does in the Aramaic, and if the instructions are followed in the course, is what forgiveness does is it literally collapses the output of the perceptual mind. When the output of the perceptual mind is collapsed, it drops into its own footprint. It drops into what's been called the unconscious. Carl Jung says it very beautifully. He says, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives and we'll call it fate. In other words, as long as there's something in me that I don't want to deal with, I'm to project it into my brain's image of anybody and everybody else. And I'll think the problem's outside of me. And I'll call that fate, not realizing that I'm the one who's creating that why is this happening to me again experience. And so what forgiveness actually does, as opposed to being the nice thing to do of letting everybody else or yourself off the hook, what forgiveness does is it collapses the output of the generationally brainwashed mind of hostility or fear, empowers us to process out those energetic patterns, and end up with the device fulfilling its original purpose, and that is supporting us, experiencing who we are. And bottom line of who we are, our true identity recaptured and expressing through this form, is literally going to create the physiological experience of present love, and literally that being attuned to that, we literally are here to pour that energy into the world. And when that happens, pardon me, remember Jeshua said a little leavening leavens a whole loaf. He wasn't talking about bread, he was talking about humanity. It's only going to take a few people who actually function as active present love to create a critical mass of energy that will create the shift that the Course talks about. That's my take on it.
Yeah, that's a big topic of how many people does it take, and how many teachers. And of course, in Miracles says there's only one teacher, but in the experience that we have, that teacher has many faces. So as many people who are human beings who are sharing that message, that's as many faces as it has, right? It's a very beautiful
Exactly, yes.
way of seeing it.
And that one teacher, another misaligned term from the Aramaic, is this idea of the Holy Spirit, some kind of a disembodied spirit being. What is this? In Aramaic, the words that have been translated as the Holy Spirit, Ruka Dekudsha in Aramaic, speaks of a feminine elemental force in us that, when invited into activity, undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. So when I collapse my errant perception, my awareness has the opportunity to drop into my unconscious. Now the unconscious, as Carl Jung said, becomes conscious. And when I turn it over to Ruka Dekudsha, that which is a feminine elemental force in me that undoes the effects of errors and teaches me the truth, all of a sudden, that which is of the nature of sin, the energies that are off the mark, generational or otherwise, genetic or environmental, begin to dissolve in the presence of that energy. And it's interesting that if you go back to the creation story in the Aramaic language, we're told by the Greeks that those texts say, and God sent out his spirit. Not what it says in Aramaic. What it says is the Creator sent out his breath. And so Rukadikucha is the breath. And you watch people in trauma, and what do? Hold their breath. Don't make me breathe in the presence of my pain. And so they deny the movement of the energy by holding the breath. And you remember they said, and this is another misinterpretation from the scriptures, the only unforgivable sin is the denial of the Holy Spirit. So, and over the years, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've worked with that, oftentimes people who are older, aging, and they really hold this belief based on the Greek that they're going to go to hell. They literally know they're going to die and they're going to go to hell because they denied the Holy Spirit. They were 15 or 20 or whatever, and they, in their mind, did what the churchianity told them was denied the Holy Spirit. And that was an unforgivable sin. If we go to the Aramaic, what it says is the holding of the breath, the denial of that, we could call it the super processor that knows how to move the energy at every level, is the error, the energy that's off the mark, that leaves us in unforgiveness. There's no unforgivable sin. It's just, it leaves us stuck with those old traumatic generational patterns. So when I allow myself to restore fully the breath, whatever is unconscious now starts to come forward into my conscious awareness, and with the activity of the breath, dissolves, energetically dissolves. If let's say, for instance, I've got a pot of water and I extract heat from it. I extract heat. What do I end up with? I end up with this solid physical thing called ice. If I add to it, add heat to it, it turns back to water. If I keep adding heat, it all of a sudden becomes free-floating, a gas, and disappears. It's a good metaphor for the breath, Rukadikucha, and the energies that one would call sin, the energies that are off the mark. If I hold my breath, it's like extracting heat from water, and it solidifies and becomes part of the form, or the reflection, what our eye tells us is form. When I restore the breath, it's like restoring heat to water, and literally the energetic pattern of the held trauma is elevated until it moves from the solidified state we call physiology out into awareness. I get to have awareness of it, and it dissipates just like the gas does, the gaseous form of H2O, and it's gone. And that is the action of forgiveness. And forgiveness is needed. I invite people to notice that unless you're just a pretty much miserable person, notice that you're pretty happy with most everybody in your life as long as they're doing what you want them to do. Most everybody go, yeah, I'm pretty happy with most everybody. So as long as everyone is fulfilling the goals you hold for them, including yourself, you're pretty okay. Notice the only time you go into any form of hostility or fear is when someone is not fulfilling the goals you hold for them. And that's the key way into understanding forgiveness, a la first century Aramaic Jeshua. Because the perceptual mind divides and is driven by our goals. In Aramaic, the word forgive is shabag or shabak, and it literally translates to cancel, to let loose, or to untie. Now, if I interact with Bill and we're each in a fit of rage, do I cancel him? Well, no, that's murder. Do I cancel myself? No, that's suicide. What can I cancel in my interaction with Bill? I can look specifically at what I want. The Course calls this trifling treasures. Look for your trifling treasures. In the situations in one's life where there is upset and pain, look for the trifling treasure that you have, the goal you hold for the object of your attention, and cancel the goal. The goal drives the perception that has projected unresolved pain in it. When I cancel the goal collapses. or pardon me, the perception collapses. And again, when it collapses in on its own footprint. I now have access through the breath, through the presence of love, to the dissolution of my own unconscious mind. And that is forgiveness. There are only two places on the planet I found that tool. One is in the first century Aramaic teachings of Jeshua. And I didn't recognize in the Course in Miracles till after I understood it from the first century Aramaic teachings. But there's a lesson in the Course, I'm not remembering what lesson it is. It's not coming to mind. But anyway, there's an exact and specific instruction for how to forgive, although it's not labeled that way, and I've never found anybody that's working with the Course that's found this definition or the how-to of forgiveness. And what the lesson says is, let go all the things you think you want. Your trifling treasure put away, and leave a clean and open space within your mind to come. Cancel the goal that drives this pain perception. When you cancel the goal, the pain perception collapses. When it collapses, it drops into its own unconscious footprint. And now, with the mind of Christ, the active presence of love, and access to my own unconscious, whatever I'm willing to breathe through and allow to come to the surface will be dissolved from me. And that's forgiveness. That took me about 35 years to learn in working with first century Aramaic tools of forgiveness. And that's the bottom line. And there it is in the Course. It's so simple. It's right there. Let go all the things you think you want. Your trifling treasure put away. Collapse perception. Leave a clean and open space within your mind. And the active presence of love, the mind of Christ, will dissolve whatever you're holding on to. That's been probably going on in your bloodline for eons and eons and eons. We have a worksheet for that and an app for that. You know, people just go to their app store on their phones and type in Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, all one word, Heartland, Aramaic Forgiveness. They can download our app. From within the app, if they start to use, there's a worksheet, step by step. Here are the steps to engage in the actual forgiveness process. If at any stage in using the app there's a question, they just hit a button and ask the question. That question is sent via email to my wife. And on the next radio show we do, she'll read that question, we'll answer it, and send back a link from the radio show so that the answer is available to the person who's asked the question. And we're there 5 days a week, an hour a day, actually 2 hours a day. There's a clinical psychologist, Dr. Tim Hayes, that does the first hour of our show now, and then we do the second hour. So it's actually 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, from noon till 2 o'clock Eastern time. And people are welcome to call into the show or access the show. We're actually on an app called Needle, N-E-D-L, and it's called Mind Shifters Radio, and people can call in and we'll have a conversation and offer support on processing through, doing worksheets, and engaging in the tools.
Yeah, it's a big topic in A Course in Miracles, and it also had in that subject of that you were speaking of. It also says you do not know what you really want. Right, the will, and it also, and then in other passages it speaks about the will of God is perfect happiness for everyone, and it's possible. It's not something impossible. It's actually the natural state of things when all are perfectly
what we're designed
happy.
For.
Yeah. So that's another thing about that is that so this recognition that the goals that we've set are the ideas of what would be good for us or is good for us, that they may not be right? They're probably wrong in most cases, or unless we're actually have collapsed it, as you said. But then they're no longer goals in the sense, but a state of mind, right? So it's a different thing.
Yeah, what we suggest to people that they do is they look in a specific circumstance for the best they can exactly what they want from whoever the object of attention is that they're projecting on. Most people in our world, my granddaughter just came in, hey, Arya, most people in our world live in a state of denial. And we have a specific definition we've developed in our method of teaching the work. And that is that denial is thinking or speaking as though something outside of us is the cause of what's moving inside of us. When we live in denial, in essence, what we're saying to our mind, which is nothing but an evidential device, we're saying to the mind, don't show me any evidence that tells me that I'm involved in this. Show me evidence that it's all about them. So we actually dissociate from that which we don't want to deal with, usually following generational and cultural patterns. When we dissociate from what we don't want to deal with, we create an unnatural condition called an unconscious mind. We hide from ourselves what we don't want to deal with, and the accumulated energy that we put there ends up being what drives our whole creative process. To me, one of the most drastic things that's ever happened to us as human beings is that we've had hidden from us the fact that we are by nature creators. We're made in the image and likeness of the Creator. We are creators. And we bought into that belief, and so we tend to live in this world whenever people are upset. Bill made me mad, Harry made me mad, Hortense hurt me. And so when I do that, I'm saying to my mind, you're not allowed to show me the truth. Give me an hallucination. Project this unresolved pain into my brain's image of whoever I'm looking at. And the driver for that whole process is the goal that I hold for them. And when I identify the specific goal that I hold, and let's say with Bill, it might be, I just wanted Bill to treat me, lovingly, gently, and with respect. Isn't that a reasonable thing? And here you are, Michael, you're telling me to cancel my goal for Bill to treat me lovingly, gently, and with respect. Why would I do such a ridiculous thing? I deserve that. And I'd say to that person, yes, of course you deserve that. You should be treated lovingly, gently, and with respect by everybody in the world. You're not canceling the goal because you don't want that. You're not canceling the goal because you don't deserve that. You're canceling the goal because you come to recognize that every time you put it into your mind, it causes your mind to shift into some form of hostility or fear that now limits the flow of love through your structure. And you need to get rid of that. So I cancel the goal because I want to collapse this lie that my mind is telling me, the hallucination that causes me to dissociate from the truth and project what I haven't dealt with into my brain's image of everybody else. When I collapse that whole procedure and bring literally opening the unconscious dynamic in myself to the presence of love, then whatever I'm holding on to is then transmuted and healed in an instant.
It's a very powerful thing to think about, that even these positive, justified expectations that you think are justified actually limit you to expressing love towards everyone, because you're angry about them not fulfilling that, and then you're not nice to them.
Well, my take is that nobody's ever been angry with anybody. When anger comes up, anger is thought of in the culture as an emotion. My conclusion is anger is not an emotion. Anger is a drug. Anger is an internally produced energetic pattern that anesthetizes us against pain. When I cancel the goal and I breathe, I can breathe off that anesthetic, and then I'll do the very unpleasant thing of coming in touch with my pain. One of the reasons my take is that healing is not very popular because it's not Dr. Feelgood. I have to be able to be with and hold whatever it is that I, or maybe 2 or 10 generations ago, energetically locked into this energy system. I have to be willing to be with that. I have to be willing to embrace it in the active presence of love. And as I do that, then those energetic patterns dissolve, and my physiology literally becomes a space where literally I incarnate, I bring in and again reflect into the world the energy of my created essence. And as more and more of us do that, we create that as a critical mass energy that makes it more available to more people. Every person that gets on the team of doing that, in the situation where, there was a conflict in their marriage or situation, a conflict with a child or with a parent, every person who heals one of those energetic patterns opens the energy space for every other person on the planet that has that issue to also heal that energetic pattern more easily. And that's, to me, where, the critical mass comes in, and together we heal.
Yeah, and of course in Miracles it also says we never heal alone, and it also speaks of walking each other home, which we are doing, and that's also the purpose of this podcast. And I believe in your radio show also has that purpose. And yeah, it's really, really, really powerful. So we're getting
Absolutely.
to the point where we need to wrap
Delighted to be walking
up.
home with you.
Yay. Yeah. So is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to share at this point?
Well, if people want to access the app, again, they can go to their app store, just type in Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. Our website is whyagain.org. People can download my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, free there. The website's about 20,000 pages, and it's all, all the tools are there. People don't need money to access it. It's all there and available. And if questions come up, download the Needle, NEDL app from anywhere in the world. People don't need a phone to call in. The show, Mind Shifters Radio Show, is done from within the app. So people can just download Needle and search for Mind Shifters Radio, select it as a register and select it as a favorite. And then every time we're ready to do a show, they'll get a notification, open the app, and we'll be having a conversation. Our YouTube channel, if one goes to YouTube, just type in Michael, MICHAELRYCE as one word, and they'll be looking at our channel. There are over 1,000 hours of videos. And on our website, we've got something over 5,000 hours of radio shows where the whole conversation is just, basically we've done the same thing as our Mind Shifters radio show, and we've got 5,000 hours of that conversation covering everything from every issue that any human being could possibly look at, war or anything else. Those conversations are all there and available free on our website. So that's what we're here to do. And if any other questions come up, my wife, Jeannie, her email is JEANIE at WHYagain.org. If people drop Jeannie a note, we'll be having a conversation. We do residential intensives. I do a one-on-one personal intensive with people called Quantum Still Point. And we're available to create support in any way we can.
That's marvelous. So I'd like to thank you and everyone else who is contributing to this show and making it possible. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And if you want to be a guest, please reach out to me. And also review the podcast and subscribe and make sure that people hear about it so that more people get the message. And blessings to you all. Till next time.
Delighted to be joining you. Blessings. Take care. Bye-bye.